Hello Year 2s and welcome to our active read lesson this week. I'm going to remind you of Vipers to start with. These are our question types that we have throughout our text and they help us build up our comprehension skills. So we have V for vocabulary, I for inference, P for prediction, E for explanation, R for retrieval, S for sequence and summary. You're going to see these symbols throughout the text that we're reading this week, so they give you a clue as to what skill you will be practicing. For your lesson, you are going to need a pen or pencil, some paper, and make sure you've got those listening ears. As we did last week, we are going to start with our red words. We need to learn our red words by sight. So this means we remember what they say without needing to sound them out. They help build our fluency and speed when we're reading. And this means that we're more likely to understand what we're reading because we're doing less sounding out. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen with you so that you can see the red words nice and clearly. We're going to do it with my turn, your turn. When I tap my chest, that means it's my turn, and then I will offer it to you. Are we ready? Off we go. Steak. Clothes. Another. Parents. Though. Only. After. Because. Well done. And now I have an activity for you. Let me show you the next screen. Here is an activity to practice your red words. You can place some red words on your doorway and they can act as a code to open the door. And the door stays locked if you don't get them right. You'll need to read the words correctly before you can enter the room. Make sure you ask a grown-up before you do stick any words up. As you can see, I've got my printed cards, but you could just type them on paper. And if you need some new red words to practice, I've put the link in our remote learning, so you'll be able to find it there on our website. Okay, we're going to start today's active read lesson. As before, I have split the lesson up and there are pause points throughout the video, so you can have a break and come back to this lesson later today or even another day to practice your reading. So first of all, we're going to be practicing retrieval. We're going to find the answer to a question from the text. Before we begin, I have a question for you. What is poetry? We did poetry a couple of weeks ago, so you might remember some of the things that you need. It's a piece of writing that uses imaginative words to share ideas, emotions, or a story with a reader. The person that writes a poem is called a poet, and they like to use words really imaginatively to create sounds that work together well so that we can read them out loud and perform them. Some poems, especially children's poems, have rhyme and rhythm in them, and they sound a little bit like music, or they have lots of repetitions so that you can memorize them and perform them. But you do need to remember that all poems don't need to rhyme. So here are a few things that poems might have. Words. All poems need words. Alliteration. This is where in a phrase the words might start with the same letter, like slow, slippery snake. Rhythm. Rhyme. And they need to tell a story or an emotion, or it might be about a thing or a place. The book we are reading this week is called Time Travelling Underpants, and it's a collection of poems by James Carter. And there's a picture here of James on your screen for you to see. First of all, I've got a question for you. Where would you go with time travelling underpants? Would it be the same place as when you designed your time machine, or would you go somewhere different? A fantastic collection of poems from the wonderful James Carter, in which he talks about amazing inventions, teaches us how to play air guitar, explores nature, visits outer space, writes a fantasy Christmas list, and gives us invaluable advice about time travelling underpants. Don't forget to hold on to the side of your pants and to chant out loud the time traveling underpants owner mantra before each time trip. My pants are warm and free from grime as I journey far in time. I travel safe with peace of mind. My pants are clean, so I'll be fine. Why does the poet use capital letters within some sentences? Can you find 2 words that rhyme? And here it's the little bit about James Carter. And I'm going to read this out to you, and you've got some retrieval questions to answer. James Carter lives in Oxfordshire with his wife and 2 daughters. He travels all over the UK and abroad with his guitar, called Keith, of course, to give live poetry performances and workshops. People often refer to him as the crazy guitar playing poet person, which is a pretty good description, really. Ever since hearing the Beatles at the age of 5, James has been mad about words and music. He was also 5 when he first watched Doctor Who, which 40 years later gave him the idea of writing a book of poems called Time Travelling Underpants. Raised by wild guinea pigs in the jungles of West Yorkshire, Chris Garbett developed the uncanny ability to emit funny pictures with his mind. He now works out of a giant blue airship hovering 2 miles above central London and only ever comes to Earth's surface to buy cakes. Oh, I wonder who Chris Garbett is. Here are your retrieval questions. Where does James Carter live? What is the name of his guitar? Where did the idea to write this book come from? Here is our contents page. You can see that this is a collection of poems by James Carter, and he's got quite a few in here, and there are all different ones. I've picked 4 different poems for us to have a look at, and there are a few more on his website if you'd like to have a look. Why would a poetry book have a contents page? Here is our first poem. Time Travelling Underpants. A few words of warning for those that own them. Number 1, don't show your underpants to anyone. You don't go around showing people your other pants, do you? Do you? Number 2, don't tell anyone about your underpants. If you do, watch out. They might try to take them off you when you're not looking. 3, wash your underpants. Do you really need to know why? 4, remember, underpants are underpants, not places to store pocket money or unwanted sprouts. 5, don't sleep in your underpants. You might just knock the time switch by accident and wake up in a cave next to a hungry saber-toothed tiger. 6, don't lend your underpants to anyone, especially the school dinner ladies. 7, don't forget to hold on to the side of your pants and chant out loud the time travelling underpants owner's mantra before each trip. My pants are warm and free from grime, and as I journey far in time, I travel safe with peace of mind. My pants are clean, so I'll be fine. Why shouldn't you tell anyone about your time travelling underpants? If you had your own time travelling underpants, what warning would you create and why? I wonder what your warning might be. Here's an extra activity for you. Can you practice reading that poem using expression and perform it? Again, there is a PDF of all the poems on our home learning, so if you need to be able to read it on the screen, you can. You can pause here for a break or continue to the next part of our lesson. Lesson 2, I can explain my ideas and opinions. Here's a recap. Can you tell someone or write down what is poetry? What is the title of the collection of poems we're reading? Who is the poet? Here's our next poem. This poem is called Time Capsule. Before I start reading it, I want us to have a look at the structure of the poem. You'll notice that I've marked it. So here you can see that I have marked this section here. This is called a verse. A verse is made up of lines, and poems can be written like this so that they're easy to keep your rhythm. Here it goes. This is Time Capsule. On past the cabbage round the side of the shed, way down in the loomy thick soil, lies my time capsule. It's waiting for the people of the future to make sense of what my teacher calls our mementos from the 21st century. But what if the shoebox gets all soggy? And what if slugs and worms and weevils come and nibble it all away? And what if nobody ever finds it anyway? Before we carry on, can you answer these questions? What is a time capsule? What is a memento? Why would a shoebox get soggy? And what if I don't actually tell my teacher about digging it all up and rescuing my favourite blue marble, my first wobbly tooth, and woof, my lovely old pyjama case dog? Not that I need these anymore or anything, because I don't actually. It's really true. And anyway, I could put them up in the attic instead, where they'd be much easier to find. So there. Can you describe an attic? Where would you find it? Why do you think the person in this poem changes their mind about their time capsule? Here's an activity for you. What would you put in a time capsule and why? Can you draw a picture of your time capsule and what you would put in it, and then write a few sentences about why you chose those items? You can pause here for a break to complete your activity, or you can continue to the next lesson. Lesson 3. I can use the vocabulary in a text to understand what I'm reading. So before we start this poem, I want you to have a think about what is a Kennings poem. Can you remember what they are? It gives you a clue with what is on the screen now. It's quite tricky, isn't it? Well done. A Kennings poem is a two-phrase poem, and it's usually made up of nouns, adjectives, and verbs. And they're a little bit like a riddle. They give us clues to a place, a thing, or an emotion. So here's a Kennings poem written by James Carter. It's called Call Me, Kenning number 1. Toe warmer, toast maker, forest eater, water hater, dragon lover, light giver, candle melter, plague ridder, London killer, coal bringer, heavy smoker, people choker. Yes, I'm cruel, but I'm no liar. I'm the one that you call. What am I? Now, I used rhythm there to perform the poem, so I needed to make sure that I kept with the rhythm of what I was reading. Maybe you could give that a go. Here are some questions for you. How does this poem make you feel, and why? Why do you think the poet uses the adjective cruel to describe what it could be? Can you think of another two-phrase word to describe what this poem might be talking about? Have you guessed what it is? I wonder if you were right. It was fire. Well done. And here is Kenning number 2. This one is called What on Earth? Shape shifter, ship lifter, beach crasher, cliff basher, sin washer, loo flusher, world wider, firefighter, life taker, life saver, maker, cupper, washer upper, store in a tower, hydropower, April shower, feed a flower. I can be ice or steam or snow, but just for now, I'm not going to tell you again. Can you guess what it might be from those clues? Here are some questions that I want you to think about as well. What is a sin? Does make a cuppa follow the rules? Why do you think the poet did this? How many nouns are in this poem? Can you find them all? Have you guessed what it might be? It's quite tricky because it might not be what you were expecting it to say. It says, I'm H2O. That's the chemical way we might say water. So well done if you guessed correctly. And you can pause here for a break, or you can continue to the next lesson. Lesson 4, and this is our last lesson for this week. I can make inferences from a text. So just to remind you, if you've had a break, what is poetry? What is the title of the collection of poems we're reading? Who is the poet? What were the Kennings poems about? And this poem is called Sorry, Sorry, Sorry. Sorry I wasn't listening to a single word you said. I drifted off into the mist that grew inside my head. Sorry I wasn't listening. I didn't hear a sound. I went where dreams of dreams have dreams and the sky and the ground swap around. Sorry I wasn't listening. Aliens were at the door asking for directions to the planet XR4. Sorry I wasn't listening. Some pirates came for me. First I had to walk the plank and then I made them tea. Sorry I wasn't listening. I don't know what went on. Could you say it one more time? Hang on. Where have you gone? And here are your questions. What is the title of the poem? How many verses are there? What is the poet describing when they say, I drifted off into the mist that grew inside my head? What is the poet describing? Why do you think this? Have you ever had a time when this has happened to you? It's quite tricky, isn't it? It's talking about daydreaming. This was my favourite one this week. Did you have a favourite poem this week? If you want to continue reading poems by James Carter, you can visit his website. I've put the link on our remote learning. He has created lots and lots of poems, and there's even an all about him section on his website too, if you wanted to find out more. I'll see you soon. Bye.